In a peaceful Nigerian town, a loving wife believed she had the perfect marriage, a wealthy husband, joyful children, and a home filled with laughter. But behind the luxury, vacations, and sweet kindness, hid a secret darker than night. When she discovered the truth, her world shattered, and her courage was tested in ways she never imagined. This is the story of Adaora, a woman who learned that the man she loved, Chief Obinna, her devoted husband, was living a double life. A story of love, betrayal, courage, and the strength of a mother who refused to let evil win. Before we continue, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Adaora Nwoke lived the kind of life that made other women sigh with admiration and envy. From the outside, her world sparkled like gold under the sun. Her husband, Chief Obinna Nwoke, was the picture of success. Wealthy, generous, soft-spoken, and deeply respected both in Enugu and beyond. People often said he had the kind of charm that could win over a whole village in one afternoon. He greeted neighbors with warm smiles, donated to community projects, sponsored school fees for less privileged children, and never missed a town council meeting. Everyone admired him. And Adaora, she was the jewel of his household. Together they had 2 children. Chika, their lively 10-year-old son who wanted to be a pilot, and Amarachi, their gentle 7-year-old daughter who loved singing and clung to her father like her favorite doll. Their home was a mansion overlooking the green hills of Enugu, with marble floors, sparkling chandeliers, and a compound big enough for the children to ride bicycles freely. Every corner echoed with the laughter of a family everyone believed was blessed. Weekends were always magical. Sometimes, Chief Obinna would take them to the mall for shopping, proudly holding his wife's hand like a man who had nothing to hide. Other times they drove to resorts, played by the pool, and took pictures that Adaora later uploaded with captions like, "Family, my greatest blessing," and holidays. Those were legendary. Christmas in Ghana, summer in Dubai, Easter in South Africa. Each trip filled Adaora's heart with a warm certainty that she had married not just any man, but the right man, the man heaven chose for her. Chief Obinna showered her with affection. "Nkem," he called her, "my own. Your happiness is my priority." He bought her gold necklaces, bracelets that shone like morning sun, perfumes from abroad, and surprise bouquets that arrived even when there was no special occasion. He never allowed her to carry anything heavy. He opened doors for her. He kissed her forehead before bed. He prayed with her each morning, his deep voice steady and reassuring. What more could a woman ask for? Yet, beneath all this beauty there was something strange. Something Adaora couldn't understand. Every few weeks he would disappear. Always the same reason. "Nkem, a business trip came up suddenly. I didn't want to worry you. I'll be back in 2 or 3 days." She never asked for details. She never pressed. Because when you love someone deeply, questioning them feels like doubting them. And Adaora trusted her husband with her whole heart. But at night, on certain nights, she would wake up suddenly, her heart racing, her palms damp, a coldness gripping her chest. A whisper in her spirit said, "Adaora, something is wrong." A warning she didn't understand. A feeling she couldn't name. A shadow that drifted across her soul like a passing cloud. Still she pushed it aside. After all, nothing in her life suggested danger. Nothing hinted at brokenness. Nothing pointed to secrets dark enough to shatter everything she believed. So she smiled. She cooked his favorite meals. She prayed for his business. She waited patiently each time he traveled. And for years, she convinced herself that the voice inside her was just fear, nothing more. Until one day, one single day. The day her perfect world collapsed like a house built on sand. A day she would never forget for the rest of her life. Because that was the day she found out who her husband truly was. And the truth was darker than anything she could have imagined. It started with little things. Small cracks in the perfect facade. Tiny whispers of something Adaora couldn't yet name, but that made the hairs on her neck stand on end. At first she brushed them aside. Maybe it was imagination, she told herself. Maybe it was just her anxiety creeping back from years of raising children in a world that demanded perfection. But the signs kept coming. One evening, while folding the laundry in the warm glow of the bedroom lamp, Adaora picked up one of Chief Obinna's crisp white shirts. He paused. There was a stain near the cuff. Not blood, but a reddish-brown dust, caked in the folds as if it had been scraped off the ground somewhere wild and far away. Her fingers trembled slightly as she touched it. "Obinna," she asked softly, trying to sound casual, "where did you travel this time?" He looked up from his newspaper, and for a fraction of a second, his eyes flickered, almost too fast, before settling into that familiar charming smile. "Just business, my dear," he said smoothly, placing a reassuring hand on hers. "Leave all that to me. You focus on the children." Adaora nodded, forcing herself to let it go. But deep inside, unease stirred. Then came the incident with little Chica. It was a quiet afternoon, the sun filtering through the curtains in golden stripes. Chica ran into the living room, tears streaming down his face, his small body shaking. "Mummy," he cried. "Mummy, I saw Daddy on TV." Adaora blinked, startled. "What do you mean, my son?" she asked, thinking he had merely dreamed a scary dream. He was wearing a mask, Mummy. He was holding someone, and people were shouting." Chica insisted, his little voice trembling. Adaora's stomach twisted. She crouched to his level, brushing his hair back gently. "Nwam, are you sure? Maybe it was a dream." He shook his head violently. "No, Mummy. It wasn't a dream. I saw him. I saw Daddy." For a moment, Adaora felt the world tip sideways. Her heart skipped, then raced. But she held her composure. Chica was only 10. Children had wild imaginations. Yet, in the deepest part of her mind, a warning alarmed her. This is real. Something is very wrong. Over the following weeks, more signs began to surface, each one small on its own, but together forming a tapestry of unease. She discovered large bundles of cash, hidden in a bag tucked behind the wardrobe, enough money to buy a small house. She noticed his phone constantly ringing with numbers she didn't recognize. Contacts with no names, calls coming at odd hours. Sometimes he returned from business trips, with clothes smelling faintly of sweat, dust and leaves. Raw, earthy smells that did not belong to the luxury hotels he claimed to visit. Then came the night that shook her entirely. Adaora was upstairs, finishing the dishes in silence while Obinna showered. A notification pinged from his phone, a sound so ordinary, yet it felt like thunder in her ears. She glanced at the screen without touching it. The message was short, stark, and terrifying in its simplicity. "Target secured. Waiting for your command, Chief." Adaora froze, her hand hovering over the counter. Her heartbeat pounded like a war drum in her chest. Her breath came shallow, sharp, and uneven. A chill ran down her spine. When Obinna stepped out of the shower, droplets still clinging to his broad shoulders, she forced a calm smile, a practiced facade of normalcy. "Dinner?" she asked softly, her voice steady, though her insides quaked. He nodded, towel wrapped around his waist, still unaware that the world she thought she knew had already begun to crumble. She sat down across from him at the dining table, the bundles of cash and the haunting message unspoken but burning in her mind. Every smile, every casual word felt like a knife slicing through her heart, a heart that had once believed in the perfect life, in a man who seemed flawless. That night, as she kissed her children goodnight and tucked them in, she realized that everything she had trusted, everything she had believed, was no longer certain. Her perfect family, her golden mansion, her life of laughter and vacations, it was all a delicate mask, hiding something dangerous beneath. And Adaora understood with a bone-deep certainty that soon she would have to face the truth. A truth that would shake her world, tear apart her illusions, and force her to decide. Could she survive the man she loved? If he was capable of crimes unimaginable. She didn't know it yet, but the truth was waiting for her, and it would come one night she least expected. Adaora had always trusted her husband. She believed in the life they had built together, in the laughter of their children, and in the charm of the man she married. But that night, her world would shatter in ways she could never have imagined. She returned home earlier than expected from visiting her sister. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving a soft golden hue in the sky. The house seemed quiet at first, except for the joyful shouts of Chica and Amarachi racing ahead of her. The children ran inside, their laughter echoing against the walls of their mansion. Adaora smiled, feeling a sense of comfort she had grown to rely on. But then, a sound froze her in place. From the backyard came muffled voices, low but urgent, mixed with the unmistakable sound of someone crying. Her pulse quickened. She tilted her head, listening, trying to convince herself it was nothing. A neighbor perhaps, or a family friend, but deep down a cold shiver ran down her spine. She approached cautiously, each step measured, careful not to make a sound. Her hands trembled slightly as she grasped the edge of the doorway. Peering around the corner, she saw it, a sight that made her blood run cold. 4 masked men, heavily armed, surrounded a man who was tied to a chair, his body trembling with fear. The scene was terrifying, unreal, something she had only seen in movies or heard about in news reports. Her heart hammered violently in her chest. And then she saw him, Chief Obinna, her husband, the man she loved, the father of her children, the one she had trusted with everything, her heart, her life, her very soul. He was standing there, perfectly composed, giving orders with a calm, chilling authority that made the hair on Adaora's arms stand on end. "Make sure nobody sees his face," he commanded. His voice cold, calculated. "We deliver him tomorrow morning. No mistakes." Adaora's hand flew to her mouth to stifle a scream. She staggered back slightly, her knees weak, her mind struggling to comprehend what she was seeing. The ground beneath her seemed to shake. Her perfect marriage, the life she had cherished, was nothing but a lie. The man she had adored, the one she had trusted above all others, was a criminal, kidnapper. And she had been living under the same roof as him, completely unaware. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream. But her feet felt rooted to the spot. Fear and disbelief paralyzed her. How could the man who kissed her good morning, who held her children with gentle hands, who smiled warmly in public, be capable of something so horrifying? She tried to retreat quietly, stepping back toward the shadows of the house, but a voice stopped her in her tracks. "Adaora." It was calm yet firm, the kind of voice that sent chills down her spine. She turned slowly, and their eyes met. Obinna's face was frozen, a flicker of shock and panic crossing his usually composed features. The confident, charming husband she knew was gone, replaced by something darker. Fear, guilt, and perhaps even desperation danced in his eyes. What is this?" she whispered, her voice trembling as tears began to sting her eyes. He swallowed hard, trying to regain his composure. The masked men around him sensed the tension and slowly lowered their weapons, uncertainty in their movements. "Adaora, go inside." "This is not what you think," Obinna said, his tone urgent, almost pleading. Her hands shook, and the tears started flowing freely. "Not what I think. Business trip. Charity work. Helping someone. Is that your excuse, Obinna?" He said nothing. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. In that silence, Adaora's mind raced, piecing together all the strange signs she had noticed in the past weeks, the sudden business trips, the strange smells on his clothes, the cash hidden behind the wardrobe, the mysterious messages on his phone. Everything made horrifying sense now. Her husband was living a double life. A man of wealth, respect, and charm in public, and a notorious kidnapper in secret. A man feared across states for his ruthlessness. A man whose power and danger she had unknowingly shared a home with. Her body shook as the realization hit her fully. Her perfect home, filled with laughter, love, and warmth, had been a gilded cage. She had been trapped in the midst of lies, danger, and betrayal. Adaora wanted to scream, to run, to wake from this nightmare, but the fear of what might happen if she moved too quickly kept her rooted. Obinna's eyes were locked on hers, filled with a strange mix of panic and determination, as if he knew the truth of what he had done but wasn't ready to let it go. You lied to me," she whispered, each word trembling with heartbreak and fury. "I did it for us, for you, for the children," he began, his voice faltering as he tried to justify the unthinkable. Her heart broke into 1,000 pieces. The man who once held her heart in his hands, the man she trusted completely, was now the source of her deepest fear. Adaora realized in that moment that nothing would ever be the same. The life she had known, the love she had believed in, had been built on lies. And she had to find a way to survive. For herself. And for the children she loved more than life itself. She took a deep, trembling breath, forcing herself to step back further into the shadows. Her eyes never left Obinna's. Her mind was racing, thinking of a way out, a way to protect her children, a way to escape the nightmare that had invaded her home. And in that instant, she understood a truth more terrifying than any weapon or threat. She was trapped in the house of a criminal, a man she thought she knew, a man who could destroy everything she loved in an instant. The night stretched on, silent but heavy with the weight of revelation. Adaora's perfect world had ended, and a terrifying new reality had begun. That night, the mansion was unusually silent. The grandeur of chandeliers and polished floors could not mask the tension that clung to the walls like a thick fog. Adaora sat on the edge of her bed, the children sleeping lightly beside her, their breaths soft and even. Her hands shook as she replayed the events of the previous night. The image of her husband giving orders to armed men burned into her mind. Chief Obinna's voice still echoed in her ears, a chilling mix of charm and authority. The man she once loved now transformed into someone terrifying, someone dangerous. "I did all this for us. For you and the children," he had pleaded, his eyes desperate. "No," she whispered to herself, shaking her head. "You did this for yourself. For greed. For power. Not for us." He had tried to justify himself, weaving tales of necessity, claiming the money, the schemes, the abductions were all for the family's future. But Adaora saw the truth, a truth so dark and unrelenting it made her stomach turn. Her perfect life had been a lie, her marriage a gilded cage. For days, she wore the mask of normalcy. She cooked meals, smiled politely, and laughed at the children's jokes, all while planning an escape that Chief Obinna would never anticipate. She observed the guards, memorized the routines, and noted every detail of the mansion, every exit, every weak point in security. Obinna increased vigilance, fearing she might alert the authorities. Yet, Adaora's mind was sharper than his fears. The plan had to be perfect. One misstep could cost her children their lives. Early one morning, before the mansion stirred and before the guards changed shifts, Adaora quietly woke Chika and Amarachi. Their small eyes blinked sleepily, confused at being roused so early. "Chika, Amarachi, we are going on a trip." "Don't make noise," she whispered, her voice calm but firm. She packed their clothes, small belongings, and a modest amount of cash she had secretly saved over time. Each movement was measured, deliberate. Her heart thudded like a drum, each beat a reminder of the danger lurking just beyond the walls. Through the back door they went, stepping lightly across the dew-damp grass. The mansion, which had always been a sanctuary, now felt like a prison. Adaora led her children to a small gap in the perimeter fence, a hole no one had noticed before. With trembling hands and quiet prayers on her lips, they crawled through one by one. Amarachi whispered, her voice small and frightened. "Mummy, where are we going?" Adaora swallowed her tears, forcing a smile. "To safety, my children. That's all that matters." They walked through the early morning streets, past sleepy neighbors and rustling trees, the sun barely cresting the horizon. Every shadow seemed a potential threat, every sound a warning. Yet Adaora pressed on, driven by the fierce, unyielding love of a mother determined to protect her children at all costs. 30 minutes later they reached the police station. Adaora burst through the doors, tears streaming down her face, clutching her children tightly. She told the officers everything, Every suspicious trip, every bundle of cash, every chilling message on her husband's phone. The police sprang into action immediately. A raid was planned, vehicles mobilized, officers armed. News traveled fast. Within hours, Chief Obinna's lavish mansion was swarming with law enforcement. The media, neighbors, and even his board members were left stunned. But Obinna had anticipated this, or perhaps he had been tipped off, for when the police arrived, he was gone. His absence did little to lessen the shock. The man known as the philanthropist of the year, the man who sponsored schools, built hospitals, and helped widows, was exposed as a notorious kidnapper. A man who smiled at the village festivals, distributed gifts to orphans, and charmed the entire community, now revealed as a criminal living a double life of deceit, greed, and terror. Adaora felt a strange mix of fear, sorrow, and relief. Her world had been torn apart, but her children were alive, unharmed, and safe. That alone gave her strength beyond measure. The life she had thought was perfect had been nothing but an illusion, yet in the midst of heartbreak, she discovered something even greater: her own courage. She hugged Chika and Amarachi close, feeling the weight of the past days lift slightly. Tears of fear and pain mixed with tears of triumph and relief. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. The legal battles, the public shame, the pursuit of justice. But for the first time in her life, Adaora felt the unshakable power of a mother's love. And in that moment, as she stood with her children, safe and determined, she made a silent vow. No matter what, she would never let the darkness of her husband's crimes touch her family again. She would fight. She would survive. And she would rise, stronger than ever before. Life after the storm was never simple. Adaora woke, once a woman whose world revolved around her wealthy husband and children, now found herself navigating a life that had been turned upside down. The mansion, the vacations, the luxury. All of it was gone, leaving only memories that haunted her in quiet moments. She moved into her sister's modest home in Enugu. The neighborhood was smaller, humbler, but it offered safety. Yet even here, whispers followed her. Some neighbors looked at her with judgmental eyes, gossiping about the fallen madam of Chief Obinna. Others offered pity, their voices soft and sympathetic. Adaora ignored them all. She lifted her head high, walking with a quiet dignity that came not from wealth, but from survival. Each day became a test of resilience. She had to learn how to rebuild, how to stand tall when the world had tried to break her. She began small, forming a modest fabric business. Every bolt of cloth she sold, every customer she served, became a brick in the foundation of her new life. Slowly, her confidence grew. She enrolled Chika and Amarachi in a safe, reputable school, where they could laugh and learn without the shadows of their father's crimes hanging over them. Months passed, each day teaching Adaora patience, courage, and the power of persistence. Then, one morning, the news she had been waiting for finally arrived. Chief Obinna had been captured in a neighboring state. His face was splashed across every news channel. His smile gone, replaced with fear and defeat. The man who had once commanded fear and respect was now powerless behind prison bars. The police acknowledged her bravery. "Madam, you saved many lives by speaking up," one officer told her, admiration in his eyes. "Your courage made this possible." Adaora felt tears well up, not from joy alone, but from a release she had carried silently for months. She had survived betrayal, heartbreak, and fear, and now justice had caught up with a man who had once been untouchable. Eventually, she visited Chief Obinna in prison, her heart steady but heavy with memories. He looked small, broken, regretful, the air around him thick with remorse. "Adaora, I failed you," he whispered, his voice cracked. She shook her head slowly. "No, Obinna, you failed yourself." He begged for forgiveness, his eyes pleading, but Adaora understood that forgiveness was not for him. It was for her own peace. She granted it silently, a quiet act that untangled the chains of fear and guilt that had bound her for so long. As she stepped out of the prison gates, the weight she had carried for so long lifted from her shoulders. The warm sunlight washed over her, golden and full of promise. Beside her, Chika held her left hand, Amarachi right hand. "Mummy," Chika asked, his voice soft, "are we safe now?" Adaora smiled through tears, feeling the strength she had earned over the past months surge within her. "Yes, my children. We are safe. And we will rise again." That moment marked a rebirth. The woman who had once lived in fear of the man she loved now stood free, strong, unbroken, and unafraid. She realized something powerful. Sometimes the strongest people are not those who fight with weapons, wield power, or chase vengeance. The strongest people are those who survive heartbreak, betrayal, and fear, and still choose to rise. Adaora looked at her children, the sunlight reflecting in their eyes, and felt hope bloom anew. The journey ahead would still have challenges, but for the first time in years, she faced them with confidence, love, and courage. A new life had begun. The future was hers, a life built not on lies, wealth, or illusions, but on resilience, truth, and the unstoppable power of a mother's love. Life will test you. It will betray you. But no matter how dark the path, courage, love, and hope can guide you through. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional, inspiring African stories filled with lessons, bravery, and triumph. Every click helps these stories reach hearts around the world.